The black rhinoceros, black rhino or hook-lipped rhinoceros, Diceros bicornis, is a species of rhinoceros, native to eastern and southern Africa including Angola, Botswana, Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Eswatini, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Although the species is referred to as black, its colors vary from brown to gray. It is the only extant species of the genus Diceros. The other African rhinoceros is the white rhinoceros, Ceradotherium cymum. The word white in the name white rhinoceros is often said to be a misinterpretation of the Afrikaans word wyd, Dutch wijt, meaning wide, referring to its square upper lip, as opposed to the pointed or hooked lip of the black rhinoceros. These species are now sometimes referred to as the square-lipped, for white, or hook-lipped, for black, rhinoceros. The species overall is classified as critically endangered, even though the southwestern black rhinoceros is classified as near threatened, and is threatened by multiple factors including poaching and habitat reduction. 3 subspecies have been declared extinct, including the western black rhinoceros, which was declared extinct by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, in 2011. The IUCN estimates that there are 3,142 mature individuals remaining in the wild. An adult black rhinoceros stands 132 to 180 centimeters, 52 to 71 in, high at the shoulder and is 2.8 to 3.75 m, 9.2 to 12.3 feet, in length. An adult typically weighs from 800 to 1,400 kilograms, 1,760 to 3,090 pounds, however unusually large male specimens have been reported at up to 2,896 kg, 6,385 pounds. The cows are smaller than the bulls. 2 horns on the skull are made of keratin with the larger front horn typically 50 centimeters, 20 in, long, exceptionally up to 135.9 centimeters, 53.5 in. The longest known black rhinoceros horn measured nearly 1.5 meters 4.9 feet in length. Sometimes a third, smaller horn may develop. These horns are used for defense, intimidation, and digging up roots and breaking branches during feeding. The black rhino is smaller than the white rhino and close in size to the Javan rhino of Indonesia. It has a pointed and prehensile upper lip, which it uses to grasp leaves and twigs when feeding, whereas the white rhinoceros has square lips used for eating grass. The black rhinoceros can also be distinguished from the white rhinoceros by its size, smaller skull and ears, and by the position of the head, which is held higher than the white rhinoceros, since the black rhinoceros is a browser and not a grazer. Their thick layered skin helps to protect black rhinos from thorns and sharp grasses. Their skin harbors external parasites, such as mites and ticks, which may be eaten by oxpeckers and egrets. Such behavior was originally thought to be an example of mutualism, but recent evidence suggests that oxpeckers may be parasites instead, feeding on rhino blood. It is commonly assumed that black rhinos have poor eyesight, relying more on hearing and smell. However, studies have shown that their eyesight is comparatively good, at about the level of a rabbit. Their ears have a relatively wide rotational range to detect sounds. An excellent sense of smell alerts rhinos to the presence of predators. The natural range of the black rhino included most of southern and eastern Africa, except the Congo Basin, the tropical rainforest areas along the Bight of Benin, the Ethiopian highlands, and the Horn of Africa. Its former native occurrence in the extremely dry parts of the Kalahari Desert of southwestern Botswana and northwestern South Africa is uncertain. It was abundant in an area stretching from Eritrea and Sudan through South Sudan to southeastern Niger, especially around Lake Chad. Its occurrence further to the west is questionable, although this is often claimed in literature. Today it is found only in protected nature reserves, having vanished from many countries in which it once thrived, especially in the west and north of its former range. The remaining populations are highly scattered. Some specimens have been relocated from their habitat to better protected locations, sometimes across national frontiers. The black rhino has been successfully reintroduced to Malawi since 1993, where it became extinct in 1990. Similarly, it was reintroduced to Zambia, North Luangwa National Park, in 2008, where it had become extinct in 1998, and to Botswana, extinct in 1992, reintroduced in 2003. In May 2017, 18 eastern black rhinos were translocated from South Africa to the Akagera National Park in Rwanda. The park had around 50 rhinos in the 1970s, but the numbers dwindled to zero by 2007. In September 2017, the birth of a calf raised the population to 19. The park has dedicated rhino monitoring teams to protect the animals from poaching. In October 2017, the governments of Chad and South Africa reached an agreement to transfer 6 black rhinos from South Africa to Zikama National Park in Chad. Once established, this will be the northernmost population of the species. The species was wiped out from Chad in the 1970s and is under severe pressure from poaching in South Africa. The agreement calls for South African experts to assess the habitat, local management capabilities, security, and the infrastructure before the transfer can take place. Black rhinos are generally thought to be solitary, with the only strong bond between a mother and her calf. In addition, bulls and cows have a consort relationship during mating. Also, subadults and young adults frequently form loose associations with older individuals of either sex. They are not very territorial and often intersect other rhino territories. Home ranges vary depending on season and the availability of food and water. Generally, they have smaller home ranges and larger density in habitats that have plenty of food and water available, and vice versa if resources are not readily available. Sex and age of an individual black rhino influence home range and size, with ranges of cows larger than those of bulls, especially when accompanied by a calf. In the Serengeti, home ranges are around 70 to 100 square kilometers, 27 to 39 square miles, while in the Ngorongoro it is between 2.6 to 58.0 square kilometers, 1.0 to 22.4 square miles. Black rhinos have also been observed to have a certain area they tend to visit and rest, frequently called houses, which are usually on a high ground level. These home ranges can vary from 2.6 square kilometers to 133 square kilometers, with smaller home ranges having more abundant resources than larger home ranges. Black rhinos in captivity and reservation sleep patterns have been recently studied to show that males sleep longer on average than females by nearly double the time. Other factors that play a role in their sleeping patterns is the location of where they decide to sleep. Although they do not sleep any longer in captivity, they do sleep at different times due to their location in captivity, or section of the park. Black rhinos have a reputation for being extremely aggressive, and charge readily at perceived threats. They have even been observed to charge tree trunks and termite mounds. Black rhinos will fight each other, and they have the highest rates of mortal combat recorded for any mammal. About 50% of males and 30% of females die from combat-related injuries. Adult rhinos normally have no natural predators, due to their imposing size, thick skin, and deadly horns. However, adult black rhinos have fallen prey to crocodiles in exceptional circumstances. Calves and, very seldom, small subadults may be preyed upon by lions as well. Black rhinos follow the same trails that elephants use to get from foraging areas to water holes. They also use smaller trails when they are browsing. They are very fast and can get up to speeds of 55 km per hour, 34 miles per hour, running on their toes. While it was assumed all rhinoceros are short-sighted, a study involving black rhinoceros retina suggests they have better eyesight than previously assumed. Black rhinos are herbivorous browsers that eat leafy plants, twigs, branches, shoots, thorny wood bushes, small trees, legumes, fruit, and grass. The optimum habitat seems to be one consisting of thick scrub and bushland, often with some woodland, which supports the highest densities. Their diet can reduce the number of woody plants, which may benefit grazers, who focus on leaves and stems of grass, but not competing browsers, who focus on leaves, stems of trees, shrubs, or herbs. It has been known to eat up to 220 species of plants. They have a significantly restricted diet with a preference for a few key plant species and a tendency to select leafy species in the dry season. The plant species they seem to be most attracted to when not in dry season are the woody plants. There are 18 species of woody plants known to the diet of the black rhinoceros, and 11 species that could possibly be a part of their diet too. Black rhinos also have a tendency to choose food based on quality over quantity, where researchers find more populations in areas where the food has better quality. Black rhinos show a preference for acacia species, as well as plants in the family Euphorbiaceae. In accordance with their feeding habit, adaptations of the chewing apparatus have been described for rhinos. The black rhinoceros has a two-phased chewing activity with a cutting ectolobe and more grinding lofts on the lingual side. The black rhinoceros can also be considered a more challenging herbivore to feed in captivity compared to its grazing relatives. They can live up to 5 days without water during drought. Black rhinos live in several habitats including bushlands, riverine woodland, marshes, and their least favorable, grasslands. Habitat preferences are shown in two ways: the amount of sign found in the different habitats, and the habitat content of home ranges and core areas. Habitat types are also identified based on the composition of dominant plant types in each area. Different subspecies live in different habitats including Vachelia and Senegalia savanna, Euclid bushlands, Albany thickets, and even desert. They browse for food in the morning and evening. They are selective browsers, but studies done in Kenya show that they do add the selection material with availability in order to satisfy their nutritional requirements. In the hottest part of the day they are most inactive, resting, sleeping, and wallowing in mud. Wallowing helps cool down body temperature during the day and protects against parasites. When black rhinos browse, they use their lips to strip the branches of their leaves. Competition with elephants is causing the black rhinoceros to shift its diet. The black rhinoceros alters its selectivity with the absence of the elephant. There is some variance in the exact chemical composition of rhinoceros horns. This variation is directly linked to diet and can be used as a means of rhino identification. Horn composition has helped scientists pinpoint the original location of individual rhinos, allowing for law enforcement to more accurately and more frequently identify and penalize poachers. Black rhinos use several forms of communication. Due to their solitary nature, scent marking is often used to identify themselves to other black rhinos. Urine spraying occurs on trees and bushes, around water holes and feeding areas. Cows urine spray more often when receptive for breeding. Defecation sometimes occurs in the same spot used by different black rhinos, such as around feeding stations and watering tracks. Coming upon these spots, rhinos will smell to see who is in the area and add their own marking. When presented with adult feces, bulls and cows respond differently than when they are presented with subadult feces. The urine and feces of one black rhinoceros helps other black rhinoceroses to determine its age, sex, and identity. Less commonly they will rub their heads or horns against tree trunks to scent mark. The black rhino has powerful tube-shaped ears that can freely rotate in all directions. This highly developed sense of hearing allows black rhinos to detect sound over vast distances. The adults are solitary in nature, coming together only for mating. Mating does not have a seasonal pattern, but births tend to be towards the end of the rainy season in more arid environments. When in season, the cows will mark dung piles. Bulls will follow cows when they are in season. When she defecates, he will scrape and spread the dung, making it more difficult for rival adult bulls to pick up her scent trail. Courtship behaviors before mating include snorting and sparring with the horns among males. Another courtship behavior is called bluff and bluster, where the black rhino will snort and swing its head from side to side aggressively before running away repeatedly. Breeding pairs stay together for 2 to 3 days and sometimes even weeks. They mate several times a day over this time, and copulation lasts for a half hour. The gestation period for a black rhino is 15 months. The single calf weighs about 35 to 50 kilograms, 80 to 110 pounds, at birth, and can follow its mother around after just 3 days. Weaning occurs at around 2 years of age for the offspring. The mother and calf stay together for 2 to 3 years until the next calf is born. Female calves may stay longer, forming small groups. The young are occasionally taken by hyenas and lions. Sexual maturity is reached from 5 to 7 years old for females, and 7 to 8 years for males. The life expectancy in natural conditions, without poaching pressure, is from 35 to 50 years. For most of the 20th century, the continental black rhino was the most numerous of all rhino species. Around 1900 there were probably several 100,000 living in Africa. During the latter half of the 20th century their numbers were severely reduced from an estimated 70,000 in the late 1960s to only 10,000 to 15,000 in 1981. In the early 1990s the number dipped below 2,500, and in 2004 it was reported that only 2,410 black rhinos remained. According to the International Rhino Foundation housed in Yulee, Florida at White Oak Conservation, which breeds black rhinos, the total African population had recovered to 4,240 by 2008, which suggests that the 2004 number was low. By 2009 the population of 5,500 was either steady or slowly increasing. In 1992, 9 black rhinos were brought from Keet National Park, Zimbabwe to Australia via Cocos Island. After the natural deaths of the males in the group, 4 males were brought in from United States and have since adapted well to captivity and new climate. Calves and some subadults are preyed on by lions, but predation is rarely taken into account in managing the black rhinoceros. This is a major flaw because predation should be considered when attributing cause to the poor performance of the black rhinoceros population. In 2002 only 10 western black rhinos remained in Cameroon, and in 2006 intensive surveys across its putative range failed to locate any, leading to fears that the subspecies had become extinct. In 2011 the IUCN declared the western black rhino extinct. There was a conservation effort in which black rhinos were translocated, but their population did not improve, as they did not like to be in an unfamiliar habitat. Under CITES Appendix I, all international commercial trade of the black rhino horn is prohibited since 1977. China, though having joined CITES since April 8, 1981, is the largest importer of black rhino horns. However, this is a trade in which not only do the actors benefit, but so do the nation-states, ignoring them as well. Nevertheless, people continue to remove the rhino from its natural environment and allow for a dependence on human beings to save them from endangerment. Parks and reserves have been made for protecting the rhinos with armed guards keeping watch, but even still many poachers get through and harm the rhinos for their horns. Many have considered extracting rhino horns in order to deter poachers from slaughtering these animals or potentially bringing them to other breeding grounds such as the US and Australia. This method of extracting the horn, known as deterring, consists of tranquilizing the rhino then sawing the horn almost completely off to decrease initiative for poaching, although the effectiveness of this in reducing poaching is not known, and rhino mothers are known to use their horns to fend off predators. The only rhino subspecies that has recovered somewhat from the brink of extinction is the southern white rhinoceros, whose numbers now are estimated around 14,500, up from fewer than 50 in the first decade of the 20th century. But there seems to be hope for the black rhinoceros in recovering their gametes from dead rhinos in captivity. This shows promising results for producing black rhinoceros embryos, which can be used for testing sperm in vitro. A January 2014 auction for a permit to hunt a black rhinoceros in Namibia sold for $350,000 at a fundraiser hosted by the Dallas Safari Club. The auction drew considerable criticism as well as death threats directed towards members of the club and the man who purchased the permit. This permit was issued for one of 18 black rhinoceros specifically identified by Namibia's Ministry of Environment and Tourism as being past breeding age and considered a threat to younger rhinos. The $350,000 that the hunter paid for the permit was used by the Namibian government to fund anti-poaching efforts in the country. In 2022, South Africa granted permits to hunt 10 black rhinos, stating that the population is growing. Threats. Today, there are various threats posed to black rhinos, including habitat changes, illegal poaching, and competing species. Civil disturbances, such as war, have made mentionably negative effects on the black rhinoceros populations since the 1960s in countries including, but not limited to, Chad, Cameroon, Rwanda, Mozambique, and Somalia. In the Addo Elephant National Park in South Africa, the African bush elephant, Loxodonta africana, is posing slight concern involving the black rhinoceroses who also inhabit the area. Both animals are browsers. However, the elephant's diet consists of a wider variety of foraging capacity, while the black rhinoceros primarily sticks to dwarf shrubs. The black rhinoceros has been found to eat grass as well. However, the shortening of its range of available food could be potentially problematic. Black rhinos face problems associated with the minerals they ingest. They have become adjusted to ingesting less iron in the wild due to their evolutionary progression, which poses a problem when placed in captivity. These rhinoceroses can overload on iron, which leads to buildup in the lungs, liver, spleen and small intestine. Not only do these rhinoceros face threats being in the wild, but in captivity too. Black rhinoceros have become more susceptible to disease in captivity with high rates of mortality. Illegal poaching for the international rhino horn trade is the main and most detrimental threat. The killing of these animals is not unique to modern-day society. The Chinese have maintained reliable documents of these happenings dating back to 1200 BC. The ancient Chinese often hunted rhino horn for the making of wine cups, as well as the rhino's skin to manufacture imperial crowns, belts and armor for soldiers. A major market for rhino horn has historically been in the Middle East nations to make ornately carved handles for ceremonial daggers called jam'iyas. Demand for these exploded in the 1970s, causing the black rhinoceros population to decline 96% between 1970 and 1992. The horn is also used in traditional Chinese medicine, and is said by herbalists to be able to revive comatose patients, facilitate exorcisms and various methods of detoxification, and cure fevers. It is also hunted for the Chinese superstitious belief that the horns allow direct access to heaven due to their unique location and hollow nature. The purported effectiveness of the use of rhino horn in treating any illness has not been confirmed, or even suggested, by medical science. In June 2007, the first ever documented case of the medicinal sale of black rhino horn in the United States, confirmed by genetic testing of the confiscated horn, occurred at a traditional Chinese medicine supply store in Portland, Oregon's Chinatown. There are 5 species of rhino in the world. These include 2 African rhino species, black and white rhinos. The remaining 3 are Asian rhino species, which include greater one, horned, Sumatran and Javan rhinos. The Sumatran, Javan, and black rhinos are listed as critically endangered by the IUCN. There are thought to be fewer than 70 Javan rhinos and between 34 to 47 Sumatran rhinos left, which makes them truly under threat of extinction in the wild. There are an estimated 6,487 black rhinos across Africa. The white rhino is classified as near threatened with 16,803 individuals, whereas the greater one-horned rhino is currently vulnerable with 4,014 individuals in the wild. 2 rhinos can weigh over 3 tons. Sumatran rhinos are the smallest of all rhinos, but they can still weigh 600 kilograms, that's almost 95 stone. On the other hand, white rhinos are the largest of the rhino species, weighing up to 3,500 kilograms. That is more than 550 stones, or well over 3 tons, which is mighty impressive considering they mainly eat grass and leaves. 3 black and white rhinos are both, in fact, gray. The names of black and white rhinos are misleading, as both are actually gray. The white rhino is said to have gotten its name from the Afrikaans word for wide, wyd, referring to its wide, square lip. In contrast, black rhinos have a pointy upper lip. Early English explorers mistook this word for white and consequently named this species white rhino, and the other black rhino to differentiate. For they're called bulls and cows. Male rhinos are called bulls and females are called cows. Their young are calves. Females tend to be more sociable than the more solitary, territorial males. Together, a group of rhinos is called a crash. 5. What are rhino horns made of? The same stuff as our fingernails. Rhino horn is made up of keratin, the same protein which forms the basis of our hair and nails. Javan and greater one-horned rhinos only have one horn, whereas all the other rhino species have two horns. Their horns grow continuously during their lifetime. The white rhino's horn can grow 7 centimeters every year, and the record length is 150 centimeters long. 6. Rhinos have poor vision. Rhinos' eyesight isn't great. They would find it difficult to see a motionless person at a distance of 30 m. They mainly rely on their strong sense of smell. 7. Javan rhinos are only found in one small place. Ujung Kulon National Park, a World Heritage Site, is home to the last remaining wild Javan rhinos on Earth. But this is a precarious place to live. An active volcano is just 50 kilometers away. And a tsunami as high as 10 m, which is projected to occur within the next 100 years, could threaten 80% of the rhino's territory in Ujung Kulon National Park. That's why establishing a safe site for another population of Javan rhinos in Indonesia is a priority. 8. They communicate through honks, sneezes, and poo. Rhinos make an array of funny noises when they're communicating. During confrontations, they growl and make trumpet calls. Black rhinos snort when they're angry, make sneeze-like calls as alarms, scream if they're scared and mwonk when relaxed. Rhinos also communicate through their poo and urine. When rhino poo in the same place as other rhinos, an area known as a latrine, they can smell the poo and urine of other individuals, and know who's in the area. 9. They love mud. Rhinos can often be seen rolling around in mud, giving themselves a protective mud coat to keep them cool, stop insects biting and get rid of any parasites. Asian rhinos are also excellent swimmers, crossing rivers with ease. But their African relatives are very poor swimmers and can drown in deep water, so they stick to wallowing in mud for a cool down. 10. Rhinos are under threat. The current rhino poaching crisis started to increase in 2008, with a peak of 1,349 rhinos illegally killed across Africa during 2015. With dedicated conservation efforts, poaching numbers have decreased, however the threat is still severe. During 2022, 448 rhinos were illegally killed across Africa, that's more than one every day. Poaching gangs have become increasingly sophisticated. In some cases, helicopters are used to track rhinos, and once the animals are shot with guns or tranquilizing darts, their horns are removed using chainsaws, and quickly airlifted away. Ground rhino horn is used in traditional Asian medicine for a range of ailments, from cancer to hangovers, despite having no proven medicinal properties. The horn has recently also been considered as a status symbol, particularly in Vietnam. Habitat loss and population fragmentation are an increasing threat to rhinos, as human populations and infrastructure grows, encroaching on rhino habitat. Climate change is also a growing challenge, with extreme weather events such as drought and flooding impacting wildlife populations. The word rhinoceros is a combination of two Greek words, rhino, nose, and ceros, horn. There are 5 living species of rhinoceros: white, black, greater one-horned, Javan and Sumatran. In addition, a number of other animals have rhinoceros as part of their names, including the rhinoceros auklet, rhinoceros beetle, rhinoceros chameleon, rhinoceros cockroach, rhinoceros fish, rhinoceros hornbill, rhinoceros iguana, rhinoceros rat snake, rhino shrimp, and rhinoceros viper. All of them have horn-like appendages on their noses. Rhinos have also been referred to as pachyderms. The name pachyderm also comes from two Greek words, pachys, thick, and derma, skin. Many years ago, zoologists grouped a number of thick-skinned species together as pachyderms, including rhinos, tapirs, horses, elephants, hippos, pigs, peccaries, and hyraxes. This classification is no longer considered useful, but the name is still used every now and then. Rhino is sometimes used as a nickname. A number of people have been given the nickname Rhino. They include American professional wrestler and actor Terry Gerin, Rhino, Mark Smith from the British show Gladiators, guitarist Larry Reinhardt, El Rhino, from the band Iron Butterfly, and David Unsworth, a former British soccer star. The national rugby teams of South Africa and Indonesia are also known as the rhinos. Rhino horns are not made of bone, but of keratin, the same material found in your hair and fingernails. A rhino's horn is not attached to its skull. It is actually a compacted mass of hairs that continues to grow throughout the animal's lifetime, just like our own hair and nails. The longest horn on record belonged to a white rhino and measured just under 60 inches, 5 feet. By comparison, a woman from Las Vegas, Nevada is believed to have the world's longest fingernails, about 10 feet worth on each hand, while a woman from China apparently holds the record for the world's longest hair, over 18 feet in length. Regrettably, neither human hair nor fingernails are believed to possess the healing properties that some people believe are found in rhino horn. If people believed they did, they could chew their own nails and cut their own hair in order to feel well, and halt the needless slaughter of rhinos. A fossil skull first thought to be that of a dragon, turned out to be from an extinct woolly rhinoceros. In the city of Klagenfurt, located in southern Austria, stands the statue of a legendary dragon or lindworm, sporting a crocodile-like body and bat-like wings. The statue was erected around the year 1500, about 30 years after a large skull had been unearthed somewhere nearby. Sculptors used the skull as a model for the dragon's head, but it was only centuries later that scientists identified it as belonging to the extinct woolly rhinoceros of the last ice age. The closest living rhino relatives are tapirs, horses and zebras. These animals are known as perissodactyls or odd-toed ungulates. Even-toed ungulates are called artiodactyls and include cattle, deer, antelopes, goats, sheep, pigs, camels, and llamas. Rhinos have 3 toes on each foot, so, in a way, their tracks resemble the ace of clubs. A group of rhinos is called a crash. A group of deer is called a herd, a group of fish a school, a group of bats a colony, a group of turkeys a flock, a group of bees a swarm, a group of alligators a congregation, a group of clams a bed, a group of frogs an army, a group of penguins a rookery, a group of hyenas a clan, a group of lions a pride, a group of wolves a pack, a group of coyotes a band, and a group of crows a murder. Who thinks of these names? Some rhinos use their teeth, not their horns, for defense. When an Indian rhino defends itself against a predator or another rhino, it doesn't use its horn to gore its opponent. Instead, it slashes and gouges viciously with the long, sharp incisors and canine teeth on its lower jaw. Neither the black nor the white rhino has incisors. Only the Indian and Sumatran rhinos have canines, but all 5 species have 3 premolars and 3 molars on each side of their upper and lower jaws. Commit this to memory, there will be a quiz tomorrow. An adult white rhino can produce as much as 50 pounds of dung per day. That's a lot of POO. And it's the result of rhinos having to consume large amounts of plant material to obtain proper nutrition. Nuances in the smell of dung can tell a rhino a lot about others in the area. Each rhino's smell is unique and identifies its owner. The dung of a young rhino smells different than that of an adult. A male's dung smells different than a female's, and the dung of a female in estrus gives off a different odor than that of a non-reproductive female. Multiple or communal deposits of dung are known as middens, essentially serving as local websites or Facebook pages, allowing rhinos to keep up with their neighbors. White rhinos aren't white and black rhinos aren't black. The white rhino's name is taken from the Afrikaans word wyd, which means white and describes its mouth. Early English settlers in South Africa misinterpreted the wyd for white. Black rhinos probably got their name from the dark wet mud in their wallows that made them appear black in color. Both species are essentially gray in color. By comparison, the famous blue rhino, corporate logo for the well-known propane tank company, is entirely a figment of its founder's imagination. Rhino pregnancies last 15 to 16 months. The only animals with longer gestation periods are elephants, which carry a fetus for close to 2 years. Camels and giraffes have pregnancies lasting 13 to 14 months, while female horses, sea lions, and dolphins can require up to a year to give birth. A bear's gestation period is about 7 or 8 months, a lion's less than 4, and domestic dogs and cats about 2. The record for the shortest mammalian pregnancy is 12 to 13 days, held jointly by the Virginia opossum, the water opossum or yapak of Central and South America, and the native cat of Australia. Rhinos and elephants are not mortal enemies. The myth of hatred between these two species dates back to ancient times. In fact, in 1515, King Manuel I of Portugal decided to see if it were true. He had been given a female Indian rhino by the name of Ganda, who was given a home in his royal menagerie, away from the elephants. One day, however, the king arranged for a battle between the beasts, held in a courtyard and attended by the royal family and their guests. The youngest elephant in the king's menagerie was led into the arena from its stable. The tapestries hiding the rhinoceros were drawn open. An official observer wrote that the rhinoceros appeared furious and immediately charged her foe, so violently that the young elephant broke free of her chain, uttered a tremendous cry and bolted to safety through a thick set of iron bars. This incident most certainly helped sustain the myth. The white rhino is the largest rhino species and the largest land mammal after the elephant. White rhinos can grow to weigh more than 5,000 pounds, which is almost as much as a Land Rover rolling along on the Serengeti. Next in size is the Indian or greater one-horned rhino, which may actually stand taller than a white rhino, but is just a bit less massive. Then come the Javan rhino and the black rhino. The Sumatran rhino is the smallest of its kind, with the largest individuals barely reaching a ton in weight. A large male hippopotamus can actually exceed the largest rhino in size, perhaps by as much as half a ton, but because it spends most of its time in rivers and lakes, biologists consider it an aquatic, not a land mammal. Perhaps the most famous rhino in the world was one named Clara. Clara was a female Indian rhinoceros who toured Europe for 17 years during the 1700s. Clara's mother was killed by hunters in Assam, India in 1738, after which she was adopted by J. Albert Sichterman and became a household pet. Clara was then sold to a Dutch sea captain, Douwmunt van der Meer, who somehow got her safely to Rotterdam, rubbing down her skin with fish oil and providing dietary supplements of beer and tobacco. Clara's European travels are documented in a book called Clara's Grand Tour by Glynis Ridley, and included stops in the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Poland, France, Italy, Denmark, and England. African rhinos have a symbiotic relationship with oxpeckers, also called tick birds. In Swahili, the oxpecker is called Askari wa Kifaru, which means the rhino's guard. The oxpecker eats ticks and other insects that it finds on the rhino, and creates a commotion when it senses danger. This helps alert the rhino. Indian or greater one-horned rhinos have similar symbiotic relationships with other bird species, including the well-known myna. Throughout their history, rhinos have been a very diverse group. Paleontologists believe that at least 30 genera and 60 different species of rhino ancestors once inhabited North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. The extinct species Paraceratherium, commonly referred to as the giraffe rhinoceros, was the largest land mammal that ever lived. Its head reached a height of nearly 28 feet, as tall as a 3-story building, and paleontologists estimate that it may have weighed as much as 20 tons. The smallest rhino ancestors were the Hyracodontidi, which were only the size of dogs. There was also a group of aquatic, hippopotamus-like rhinos, the Amynodontidae, that lived in North America and Asia. Humans are the major threat to rhinos, but several other species are also rhino predators. The two species most often reported to prey upon rhinos, usually young ones, are lions in Africa and tigers in Asia. However, leopards, hyenas, wild dogs and Nile crocodiles are also known to kill African rhino calves on occasion. By far, though, people are rhinos' number one enemy. Most wild rhino calves never meet their fathers. After mating, adult male and female rhinos typically go their separate ways. After the calf is born, it will probably spend a couple of years or more in the company of its mother, and perhaps associate with other females and their calves, but the father rhino is not part of the standard social group. 3 of the 5 surviving rhino species, the black, Javan and Sumatran, are critically endangered. This means there is at least a 50% chance that these species could become extinct sometime this century. Between 5,000 to 5,400 black rhinos now survive in 9 African countries, essentially double the number that existed only 20 years ago, so that species is actually increasing slowly. Sumatran rhinos used to be found from the foothills of the Himalayas to the island of Sumatra. Today, however, not more than 80 to 100 individuals are believed to survive as scattered populations in Indonesia. The historic range of the Javan rhino was similar to that of the Sumatran, but the species currently numbers no more than 67 individuals, all restricted to Ujung Kulon National Park on the western tip of Java. The black rhino has a prehensile upper lip that allows it to feed on trees and shrubs. The black rhino also has no front incisor teeth, so it relies heavily on its lips to bring food to its mouth. By contrast, the white rhino, the other African species, has a long, flat upper lip that is designed more for grazing on grasses. The black rhino can be compared to a tree pruner and the white rhino to a lawnmower. The upper lips of the 3 Asian rhino species are also prehensile to some degree, and other mammals with prehensile lips include bears, giraffes, horses, llamas, moose and manatees. Black, white, and Sumatran rhinos have 2 horns, Javan and greater one-horned rhinos have 1 horn. The Sumatran rhino, although it has 2 horns, is not at all closely related to Africa's black or white rhinos. It is the oldest of the living rhinos, having appeared nearly 15 million years ago, and its closest relative is actually the extinct woolly rhinoceros. Black and white rhinos appear to have evolved from a common 6-million-year-old ancestor and remain very closely related. The evolutionary paths of the greater one-horned rhino and the Javan rhino separated a bit more recently, their common ancestor dating back perhaps 2 to 4 million years. Curiously enough, most female Javan rhinos don't appear to have any horn at all. Is a hornless rhino an oxymoron? Rhino horn has been used for centuries in traditional Asian medicine, but has not been proven to cure any illness. Powdered rhino horn has been prescribed by Asian doctors for centuries as a cure for a wide range of diseases or conditions including aging, arthritis, asthma, black magic, boils and carbuncles, chest cold, chicken pox, convulsions, coughs, demonic possession, diphtheria, dog bites, dysentery, epilepsy, fainting, fever, fits, food poisoning, hallucinations, headache, hemorrhoids, impotence, insanity, laryngitis, lumbago, malaria, measles, melancholy, memory loss, myopia, night blindness, nightmares, nosebleed, plague, polio, prescription overdoses, rectal bleeding, scorpion stings, smallpox, snake bite, toothache, typhoid, vomiting and worms. There is no evidence from Western scientific studies that it has any curative powers, but at least one Chinese study disputes those data. And, of course, its use is illegal. Andatu was the first rhino ever born in captivity in Indonesia. On June 23, 2012, the female Sumatran rhino known as Ratu gave birth to a 60-pound male at the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary, Located in Indonesia's Waikambas National Park. Approximately 16 months earlier, Ratu had mated with the male rhino, Andalas, who was born at the Cincinnati Zoo in 2001, the first Sumatra rhino born in captivity in over a century. Andalas and Ratu's baby was named Andatu, a combination of his parents' names, but also an expression that means a gift from God, in the Indonesian language. The most famous piece of rhino artwork is Albrecht Dürer's woodcut, the Rhinoceros, printed in 1515. The fact that Dürer's rhinoceros is not entirely accurate is not surprising. Dürer never laid eyes on a living rhino, but made his famous drawing based on the sketch of an unknown artist who had. The animal was originally sent as a gift from Sultan Muzaffar II of India to Alfonso de Albuquerque, the governor of Portuguese India at the time, who subsequently regifted it to Dom Manuel II, the King of Portugal. Dom Manuel who then regifted it again to Pope Leo X in Rome. Unfortunately, the boat carrying the unfortunate rhino sank before it reaching its final destination, but the animal's image has been reprinted countless times over the centuries. World Rhino Day is celebrated on September 22. Each year in September, people who want to help save rhinos from extinction can do so by participating in World Rhino Day. Thank you for watching this video.